recording.
Go ahead and give me a clap.
Did you hear it?
No, once more.
Are you ready?
Yeah. Okay.
Did it work?
I didn't hear it, but as long as it's recorded on your end, we're good. And I'm going to do the same thing for myself. Okay.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah, that's weird. But so we should be fine. I've got the video. I'll sync it all up later. I'll take care of all that.
I just clapped 5 additional times to mess the whole syncing up.
I didn't hear a single one either. Okay, so I guess this is the start, maybe. This could be the first and last episode. I'm not sure. If we have enough foresight to say that, this is the first episode of 100, or if this is so ahead of its time that there needs to be one and that's it.
I think we're going to be a success. I think that we're going to be in Hollywood before the end of the year, putting our hands in the thing, the cement or whatever.
Oh, or like the Walk of Fame or whatever?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Yeah, I think so. So the reason I came across this idea is because I've been listening to a lot of comedy podcasts recently, and I've been wanting to do them. I do a podcast stream on Monday night for the shop, and I auction off games. So like I'll pop something up here and be like, hey, this game is starting at $2. Who wants it? And then people will bid for 2 minutes, and then whoever wins it, I'll ship it to them, or they pick it up at the store. And so it's not exactly a podcast; it's a stream. But the more I listened to like these comedy podcasts, the more I was like, man, I really want to just do this with my friends. And now that we have the internet, and Zoom clearly showed us that we all could do this remotely forever last year, I don't know. I wanted to hang out with somebody funny, and I usually cite you as the funniest person I know. You'll probably deny that, and
Well, yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
In my head, I'm not funny at all when I'm interacting with other people. But when I'm talking to myself, I'm like the funniest guy
right.
that there is.
Yeah. Do you make yourself laugh a lot? I feel you do, because I think growing up with you, that happened a lot.
That's all I do. I truly, like, the only person that I think is really and honestly funny is myself. But I'm, like, no matter how much evidence there is to prove that that's incorrect. So, for instance, I'll go to Michelle and be like, Michelle, I'll say something stupid. We're in the kitchen. I'll be like, Michelle, this bread was way too expensive, and like I'll be holding a finger out to flip her off near the bread, and in my mind, I think that is genuinely comedy gold, right? But she looks at me, she looks at the finger or whatever, and it's just like, there's nothing, there's no love,
just contempt,
there's no laughter, But in my head, I was like, I got that.
Yeah, you did it.
That was good.
You won. See, yeah, I have a sort of similar thing with Ariel, where if I do something awful and she laughs, I feel like, all right, that was good. If I do something awful and she turns away, I like it even more. So it's like, okay, this is extremely good. And if I do something so stupid that she leaves, pure victory. So no matter what, every reaction is positive for me.
So then you've built yourself up in your mind as a funny guy as well.
Right, right, correct, yeah, exactly. And regardless of how she sees it, if I can make myself laugh at, I don't want to say her expense, but in some cases, her dignity, her in an isolated situation. I'm not going to do something like that in public, but like if we're hanging out, like, and something awful happens and she walks away, it's like, yeah, that's excellent. All right.
Yes.
And
I wonder what happened with age that at some point I crossed the threshold where I'm not willing to do something in public anymore. Do you remember when we were young and I would just pull a breast out?
Oh, you blow your nose on your chest or whatever?
Yeah.
Yes.
Bad times.
And,
oh gosh.
And this is so this is actually what I wanted to do with this podcast. And to anybody who ends up listening to this, God help you all. This is something that I felt would be really fun. I've known you for over 20 years. It's probably been like 23 or 24 years, sometime in high school. And we're now nearing 40 years old. But we have decades of stories and situations and fun stuff to talk about. And I was thinking, number one is I wanted this to be something funny for people to listen to and enjoy and hopefully maybe relate to. I have no idea. Maybe they can't at all because we were just stupid idiots in high school hanging out. But we watched a lot of movies and we played a lot of video games and we had a lot of talks and a lot of adventures and we did a lot of really stupid things. And you and I could reminisce about stuff for hours,
Forever, yeah.
Really forever. And stories about us, stories with friends, and I mean, we could go through year by year of all the stuff that we were doing together, the games we were playing, and it just gives us so much to go into. And games used to play, the laughing game, the drawing game, like there was just so much that I felt like, if I'm going to sit here and recall all these memories, why not just do it with you, and why not record it so people could listen to it?
Yeah.
So
it's like writing a book, but with our voices.
Yeah, kind of. It's like super autobiography dialogue, And as I messaged you the other day, and I was like, what are we gonna call this? And you had a couple suggestions, and we were thinking of, this podcast, this episode 1, for all intents and purposes, what this is, could be anything. It could be, totally different than what we do in the future, but if we're going to sit here and kickstart ideas for the next however long, hour and a half, who knows, let's just let people listen to it. So that way, if they see this thing, 5 years down the road and it's successful and wonderful and they want to go back and hear what kind of garbage we came up with, then awesome. That's fantastic. And if it,
I agree.
Again, crashes and burns, then we have this isolated memory.
Well, clearly that's
move on. That's
going. Yeah,
almost likely. Yeah. So while we're here, go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name's Jason. It's weird to hear the name Jason. Not because I'm known as anything else, but I work remotely these days, so I don't hear my name, often. And even growing up, I don't. People will tell me that they called me Jason, but I don't believe it. I always believe they address me as hey, or they'll just look in my eyeballs and then just, get my attention some other way. Just
some sort of gesture.
Yes. So when I hear, when I introduce myself as Jason, it sounds weird. I don't know why. It's very normal for me to call you John.
Sure.
And, it's just, hey, I'm Jason. Like, if somebody's like, hey, Jason, it's nice to meet you, I'll be like, who are you talking to?
That's weird. Actually, when you put it like that, I think there's something weird about that because I know you on an interpersonal level as Jason. You are my friend Jason. But if, you introduce yourself as Jason to somebody who doesn't know you, it's kind of like they see your name in a different context than I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't have the inside info about who you are as a person to know what Jason is. To them, it's just a name, and it's like, you don't understand.
Yeah.
You're not allowed
the amount of times I've diarrheaed myself in your presence.
That's, which is
automatically.
More than once, which is fantastic. They don't know the history of Jason.
Yep.
So I have something similar with my name because it's John. But also, when somebody sees me and I go to a restaurant, say I go to Dion's and I order a pizza, and I go, my name is John. They write it down as John, and to me, it's like that's already a different person. That is simply not me.
That's an adult.
Yeah, you don't know me, and you say the name John. I don't look like that, as far as I'm concerned. I'm Jon, and it makes me feel like there's a disconnect already, and how dare you?
Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable. I'm already getting uncomfortableness because you are John to me. I even hear your mom's voice in my head saying your name, calling you down the hall, whatever.
Yeah.
John. It's just you're perfect. You're just John.
Right.
But it's just I don't know.
Yeah.
There's just something very weird about it, about how we view ourselves.
Yeah.
Do you think that you're an adult yet?
God, no. I'm sitting here in a room full of video games that I've had for the past 30-something years, and I still interact with them the exact same way. The difference is now I have my own place, I pay my own bills, I make my own schedule. So, I guess in a sense, maybe, but at the same time, I don't know. It doesn't feel like adulthood. It doesn't feel like I'm actually any older. I'm just more responsible, I suppose. Which I guess maybe that might be part of it, but also I don't know. How about you? Because you're working at a job right now Um, what are you doing at the moment?
I work for a company that they provide like aesthetic dermatology services. So, think of people who are actively trying to look better, like laser hair removal or whatever, Botox treatments or whatever.
Sure.
But I work for the legal department, so I don't really know that world.
Okay, so
Obviously, I
you're
mean,
not
look at me.
involved in like the understanding Botox. Oh, hold on. My phone
Correct.
just. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't know the prices of a treatment. I don't know what it does. I don't know that it makes you look younger or less fat or, you know, I don't know anything. All I know
Sure.
is that there's this legal claim, and we got to deal with
Yeah.
that.
Here's a
And
potential lawsuit if somebody injects Botox into their armpit or whatever.
yeah, or their eyeball.
Yeah. Have you had to come across anything? I guess you probably can't discuss certain legal cases, but I'm sure you've come
Yeah,
across some pretty insane things. Well, maybe not. Maybe hopefully everything is really good in your company and nobody's like at fault ever.
nothing noteworthy, nothing funny, nothing. There's literally what pops into your mind is what's happening.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there's no crazy, where like somebody got an injection and their shoulder grew 4 times the size of like a basketball, and like
Yeah.
it's just there's nothing noteworthy.
Okay. No, so it's a fairly straightforward then.
It's fairly straightforward. The weirdest thing about working for an aesthetic dermatology company is that I'm the opposite of what you would imagine a person working there to look like. I
Sure.
don't care about my appearance. I don't actively work out.
Yeah.
I barely even bathe,
Well,
so
I mean, what's the point in because you're at home, right? You're doing this all remotely at this point.
100% remote.
How does that? How do you like that?
For me, it's huge boon.
Okay.
We moved to LA, and the first thing we noticed was immediately shave off 4 hours roughly of the day in commuting.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Between the going to work and coming home, that's about 4 hours gone from your day. So
Right.
when we went remote, suddenly your life looks very different.
Hmm.
So nothing but positive things to say about working remote. I don't see that there's really a drop in productivity. There's just a whole lot more podcast consumption on my head. In the background, something's always playing.
Okay.
So
So you listen to are you listening to stuff? I know at times we went to Evo about 5 or 6 years ago together, and I remember two parts of that drive because it was what maybe like a 9 hour drive to LA, not LA, Las Vegas,
yeah,
and
about 9 hours. Yeah,
and two things we talked about were like religious principles at the time. With Sunny was in the car with us, and I think Michelle was just hanging her head out the window because she didn't want to be part of any of it.
yeah.
And then
She's
we
hoping a bird comes and like chokes her.
so she can stop dealing with. And then you told me about Genghis Khan, and I had like watched some history report on him, and you gave me like this full on like super lowdown about like the most magnificent warrior on earth, and it was actually kind of great for me because I didn't partake any of that, like through a podcast or a TV show. And you just for like an hour and a half just told me all about Genghis Khan, but also hearing it from you in a way that was not just like scientifically presented, but like presented from your perspective and your experience of listening to this made it like 100 times more enjoyable for me to listen to. I'm sure I would have enjoyed it in general, but it was fun to listen to it with you because I also got to ask you questions and you could
Yeah,
recall what you learned. And so there's something really powerful about I think podcasts that can actually be sort of like mentally productive, but
yeah,
also I just like listening to shit that makes me laugh.
absolutely.
So
And I when you first presented this idea to me, that it's funny. This thought came to my mind is, what do I think is funny? Because I kind of looked from A to Z of what I usually laugh at, and there's nothing predictable.
yeah,
There's no format that I go to. There's no. I don't know what makes me laugh. So it was very interesting thinking about this podcast to be like, well, how, what can we talk about that might be funny, or should I actively try to be funny? Should I,
hmm
should I try to be put on a show to be an entertainer?
yeah,
I, and I from every angle I looked at it, I was like, I don't know how to do this, but we'll see. Let's go.
Yeah, like what the heck? Just try it out, and it might be the worst thing we've ever done. I think it's going to be fun. Mostly because I think we have a lot to draw from, and so I think a lot of it will be active discussion as to sort of like what's going on, what do we think about things, and we don't just have to be like another podcast where two dudes give their opinion on the state of the country, but stuff we've learned over the years about ourselves, about each other, and so it could be like friendly and warm and kind of cool and relatable. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but also like I hope we talk about the time when you diarrheaed your pants after you broke your leg.
Yeah.
Like
a powerful moment in all of our lives.
Yeah. I've got so many good memories with you of doing this that I thought, you grew up with me playing video games. You're at my house often. In fact, my house with you and Danny and Slimpy and, countless other people, Jesse and Andrew, it was, and we would talk about them at some other point down the road, or maybe some of them will come on as maybe guests if they feel like it. But I just love to talk about like memories because, if I look back at a game and I say Smash Brothers 64 was probably the most pivotal piece of software of my life between you and I, especially, like we could talk for that, I'm sure, for hours.
Oh, forever.
Or bringing up stuff like StarCraft or Street Fighter Alpha or, whatever it was, going to the arcade together, going to the movies together. There's just so much to draw from, and I wasn't sure if we wanted to say like, hey, let's pick a game and discuss it as we experienced it together, because we could give isolated anecdotes, but also I kind of like the idea of like what it was like when, I do want to know what it was like when you played Final Fantasy VII and what the feelings that went through your brain, and then what it felt like for you when I don't know, the PS2 came out and we saw our first 3D Final Fantasy on the, we've got a whole lot of that kind of nonsense, but I mostly just wanted to like laugh a lot, because as I listened to these comedy podcasts, in my mind it was like, I want to get to the point where we can, take a commercial break, because we've been talking for 30 minutes about, whatever it might be, and back and forth, and interrupting each other and having a good and laughing, and and then we take a break because we're sponsored by somebody and one of us has to read the copy for Squarespace or whatever, and then we go back into our show and then we publish it on Spotify or Stitcher or whatever. I've been listening to video game podcasts and movie podcasts that mostly comedy, but all the ones that I'm listening to are by comedians as it is. So
yeah, they've crafted. They've honed their craft, and they're practiced, and they probably have an outline, and like probably have an idea of how they want something to flow. So I loved your idea that we should just kind of record the first episode, see where it takes us, see how it feels, and maybe release it later or as episode 1 as kind of like. Just having that origin story is really fun to me and intriguing, because I often feel like when I get to know somebody through podcasts or, whatever platform it is that I'm following somebody on or whatever, I often think, I wonder how these people became who they are.
Absolutely.
I like them. I like the people now, but it's interesting to see how they got there. So
yes.
And one thing that I wanted to stress was that I clearly know that you're bringing the audience. If we ever get anybody else to listen to this thing, you're bringing them, because I have turned into hermit man, just completely off the radar. I'll make maybe 4 Facebook posts, and 3 of them were like, hey, I came across this graphics card and I know they're in high demand. Does anybody want it?
Yeah, or like some sort of off comment on somebody's post where you're like, let's talk about Bitcoin or something like that, sort of just like crops up out of, because you have like these sort of bouts of vested interest that sort of like just pop up every now and then, and I like that.
They fizzle.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is like, I think a couple months back you were like, John, I'm really into investing Bitcoin, and I was like, okay, and I thought about that for a bit, and I was like, I should hit up Jason about that, and then like 3 months later I talked to you, and I think it had all but just disappeared from the spectrum, and maybe you're still into it, I have no idea, but in my mind it was kind of like you hit this phase of excitement on something, and then it just sort of.
That's how I am. I'm like, what's the new line of Coke? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And in that particular moment, it was, I'm probably talking about crypto.
Yeah.
I'm still into the investing thing as a whole.
Okay.
By the way, and the reason I'm doing that for all you listeners, I don't care what age you are, you better invest.
I know.
because if you don't, you're losing money.
If
you
I
are losing value.
Oh yeah, if I had listened to any teacher that told me to start investing, like in high school when I was a kid, I'd be doing extra excellent right now. And as it is, I'm doing fine, but also I would have been doing way better. But you
would have been where you're at, only more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But at the time, it was kind of like, oh, you know what? Come on, man. I've got this $50 right here. You know, instead of putting it in the bank, I'm gonna go watch a movie and eat candy. You know, like there's indulgences to be had. So obviously that's not gonna happen. But I like that. I like that you go through also like phases. I do the same thing. I mean, and oftentimes it's with video games or movies, or sometimes certain actors, or sometimes certain podcasts or food habits. I don't know. Like something strikes you, and then for like maybe like a month or two, you're suddenly just super into that. Like you're eating with chopsticks, and you're like, oh, I'm the guy in Karate Kid 3 or whatever. Like you just get really excited.
Well, I was going to ask you about you. You are a conundrum to me. I've never been able to figure you out. Obviously, I figured myself out because I only live my life, right?
Sure.
I've known you for over 20 years.
Yep.
And I have the unfortunate perspective on you that you are who you are. And I can't imagine you outside of that box. I have a very limited perspective of you. And it's really unfortunate too, because I know that you are a multi-layered and very complicated. Like you got a whole story that builds up to who you are. But I can't think of you in any other way other than the wacky small business owners that enjoys life to the fullest and is like a very positive, especially these days. You know, you always have positive messages that you're sending out to the universe. But I was interested to hear where that came from, because even, again, I know comedy goofy guy, and so like any other angle that I view you is always colored by that.
Sure.
So I'm interested in what the, in the how you became you story. Again, because you're bringing the audience, if there is an audience. So
yeah, hopefully.
I think episode 1 should be mostly about you.
Well, I mean, we'll sort of, I think, back and forth it, because a lot of my development is based off of the people that I hung out with. And, that would include parents, that would include siblings when they were around. They're both older than me. But also, many of my formative years are absolutely and undoubtedly molded by my friends and my time hanging out with friends, and the importance of having people that were there for me, and having people that would make me laugh that I could make laugh, and people that I would fight with to develop like my own sense of understanding about personal boundaries or other people's boundaries. And I pieced this together in recent years. At the time, it was just simply like, you're trying to figure yourself out, so you just do whatever and see what sticks. But yeah, a lot of who I am is based on, my experiences in high school, and that was largely with you and Danny and Daniel Prentice and, like Dan and all these people that are friends that we still sort of have around in our circles. But everybody, of course, is sort of like, grown up and sort of gone their own directions, but we all sort of keep in touch, and we're not too strange, which is nice.
Yeah.
But, we're still sort of around. And
you can pick up where we left off when, whenever the situation comes around. So yeah.
Right, precisely. And I think what's great about like the kind of friendship that we have is, we had our fights and our tiffs and stuff when we were younger, and we were learning about whatever it was. But you're the kind of person, and in fact, I think most of those people in that group are the kind of people that if I just, picked up the phone after a year and a half and was like, hey, what's going on? How are you? Like, nobody bats an eye. It's sort of like, oh, hey, what's going on? Like, we just continue where we left off over and over. And there's never any like, why didn't you call me? Why haven't you been there for me? Why aren't you feeding this need or whatever? And it's not that I wouldn't ever want to do those things, but it's nice to know that all of us are just sort of like gliding by, and maybe there was I learned a lot about myself from the fact that none of us really actually pressured one another to do or be anything. We were young, we had opinions, we had expressions, and that's how it was. But, as a whole, I think we've all been really important to the growth of one another.
Yeah.
And I thank you for that. So, just on a personal level, a lot of your humor has sculpted me tremendously into who I am because that humor was so important to me. Nights spent playing the
Vice
laughing
versa.
game, and um,
Yeah.
but but a lot of my other experiences have been sculpted by something that I was thinking about recently, which was hugely important to me. Was I've been watching shows like Master of None, BoJack Horseman, things that actually really revolve around people our age struggling. Okay, and it's kind of cool because it seems like I was talking with Ariel about this a little bit. It seems like after the death of Robin Williams, who, if you would describe him, seemed happy, positive, well put together, like successful. He had everything that people seek out, right?
Yeah.
But something wasn't enough for him, and he ended his own life. So clearly there's a piece of the puzzle that's missing that nobody gets a chance to see because they see everything that he presents to the world and not what he holds into himself. And I wonder if a lot of this like sort of uh, element of these shows about who are people who are older millennials or even Gen X cusp millennials like our age have sort of latched onto this and said being funny can sometimes be a response to depression, and to discuss it publicly, to discuss mental health issues, to discuss the importance of like making sure you're okay. It's almost sort of seemed like this public bond that a lot of comedians started to partake in, whether it's animated or whether it's a TV show or whatever it is. They seem to come out and really talk about it very actively and very loudly. And to me, that actually in recent years has really helped me think that, oh, I'm not alone with struggles, because I've had plenty of struggles. I had a ex-fiance that we broke up 12 years ago that ruined me. I had a really bad relationship 5 or 6 years ago that ended that really hurt me emotionally and gave me a lot of struggles. And I've had different responses throughout each of those things.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it was to try to do stupid, funny things because that was sort of my expression of, well, John does like to be funny. John does like to be stupid. John does like to, exude this, but I'm having a hard time. But let's return to what makes me feel like me because that's where I need to go. If I'm sitting here dwelling on all this pain and difficulty, it's not going to be enjoyable for anybody. But I also want people to be aware of it and that it's not something that I want to hide, but it's something that I want to confront. And so doing my stupid day videos was my confrontation to me saying, I'm having a hard time. It's right here, but here's what I'm doing about it. And I think expressing myself and talking about it publicly and trying to give people uplifting messages has been also a countermeasure for me when fighting depression or anxiety or any of these things that I struggle with sometimes.
Yeah.
So
It's super. It's it's wild to think that that people that I know might be going through something where I don't immediately associate that struggle with that person. So, like, we
hmm
obviously have friends in our group that have that we associate with certain struggles. Certain friends that have relationship struggles,
hmm
or certain friends that have financial struggles, or whatever it is.
sure.
Um, if you and I didn't have the conversations that we've had about your struggles in your life, I just wouldn't have known because I only know the Robin Williams effect.
Right.
Like John's enjoying his life. He's secure. He's a very confident person. He's funny, obviously, and he seeks joy
hmm
actively. Like, you know
Yes.
what I mean? If a situation is dull and just whatever, he will actively inject it with, I'm gonna make this better, and then suddenly, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
everything's on steroids and funny. So
Sure.
um, it's just, and also I think that the reason why it's particularly difficult for me to truly understand the depth of that is because I'm colored by my own past, right? So historically, I've run from difficult situations, and that's how I've maintained the level of happiness that I have. I would say that I'm not a person filled with anxieties or deep emotional, highs and lows, but that's intentional because of the past that I witnessed. My family go through, and also my friends. You know what I mean? I saw their struggles, and I kind of took a little mental note. Oh, probably shouldn't do that. Oh, maybe you should do a little of this. So I feel like anything in the extremes, I immediately cut out. My brain forgets it, and then I just kind of move along with this like very monotone. Oh, okay. What am I going to have today? Oh, coffee sounds good, and then I'll drink the coffee, and the same thing every day.
Yeah. So routine is
so-
sort of what kind of keeps you going.
Yeah, routine, but not a strict routine. I think that just like the I guess literally the stereotypical comfort food.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm feeling anxiety, comfort food. If something's stressful at work, whatever brings me comfort, I'll just you know what I mean? I have the mechanisms inside of me that immediately I'm like, oh well, this is just temporary, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I tend to just kind of get past it and be like, well, life could be a lot worse, and
Sure.
so far it's okay.
And
So
I'm
far it's good.
glad to hear that. I think that's actually, I wouldn't even want to say that's explicitly a bad coping mechanism. I think if sort of mishandled, it could be used to like discount large scale problems that might be more pressing. But unless you're confronted with something like that, I actually think the idea of recognizing that, is it really a big deal? Well, maybe not. And, just sort of saying, well, here's my response to it, and that's what's going to help me through this moment. I know, for different people, they respond to that differently, where something seemingly innocuous in the long run can feel like, oh, this is 10,000 pounds, I can't carry it, I want to die. Like, I really physically just feel like I simply cannot be here anymore. And I'm glad that you have a mechanism that works for you. Obviously, neither of us are doctors or psychologists, and we're not getting, giving medical advice or anything. But I think it's good to recognize those things about yourself, know what works for you. And the thing is, if it works for you, that's great. As long as it's not at the expense of anybody else, I think. How you choose to cope or whatever works for you best is as valid as you need it to be.
Yeah. It's important to note, though, that I do see the flaws in my system because it immediately the results of the what is it? You reap what you sow. So the results of me doing this is I'm a very content person, which means I have no drive, right? Which immediately is going to limit what I achieve in life. And I'm not talking about success monetarily or anything. I'm literally talking about all things.
Like ambition.
There you go.
Okay.
That's the word.
Okay.
I just don't have ambition because it's strange to me. It's other. You know what I mean? It's immediately been snipped out at the top and the bottom. So like, I don't have it.
So if I say like, what do you want to do? I mean, do you want to become a professional video game player, professional streamer? Do you want to, do construction at the Yankee Stadium? Like, what do you want, right? And you don't have an answer for that, you don't think?
That's the problem. That's the flaw in the system. When you live just to be okay and kind of day to day, and you're genuinely content in this, you know what I mean? It's not like I have dissatisfaction with my life or anything.
Sure.
But again, it's immediately going to cap yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I have those around me that are immediately a part of my life. So
right.
like, I feel like I'm victimizing my family and Michelle by my inability to acquire the need to do more, to better myself. You know what I'm saying?
So, but what you're doing isn't like preventing her from doing anything, right?
No.
So ultimately, it feels like in your immediate sphere, which is you and her, you're probably fine. I think unless she says, hey, we need to mutually raise $100,000 to move to Dubai or whatever, and you go, cool, good luck with that. That could, of course, be something that's, let me know how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Have I introduced you to any of these other men?
Right, yeah. Then of course, it could be something. But if you're making money doing something that you're good at, and I mean, do you enjoy your job?
Yeah, I enjoy my job, but again, it's a problem with I've found a way to enjoy every job I've had, unless it's
Okay.
obviously like a working at Wendy's or
I
something.
was just
Which
going to
is just
say,
like
what's really important for people to understand is that there was a point in high school where Jason, this actually might have been early college years, maybe 2000, 2001. I don't
college years
remember.
for you guys.
That's true, exactly. Yeah, post dropout years for you, I think.
Yeah,
Did you end up?
exactly.
Did you do the GED?
Yeah. As a matter of
Okay.
fact, I have the Duncans to thank for that.
Oh,
They
perfect.
actively they put my bootstraps on and they lifted me by my own bootstraps
Oh,
and
his
they
yeah,
pulled me along.
Mr. Duncan was like an outlaw, like I think of like a southern like general, where
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
just took by the horn and said, "Boy," and just turned you into
GED man.
right GED man. But what people need to know is that there was a time in our lives where you didn't give a shit. And I remember we were literally driving you to work one day. And at some point, one of us was like, Jason, you should just quit work and play Smash Brothers. And if I'm not mistaken, you might have even been like in a management position. I don't know if that's true. I can't remember.
That was Arby's.
Oh, that was
But
Arby's.
yes,
Okay.
you're right.
Well, literally, as we were pulling into the parking lot, we all concluded that you're gonna quit work right then and there to go play Smash Brothers for an afternoon.
Yeah.
So
It was a great day, though.
was
It
a
was a
great day.
good day.
Yeah, yeah, and very responsible. I mean, on all of our parts too, as well. It's not like we were helping. We were all indulgent in hanging out with one
Felt
another all
good,
the
though.
time. Our friendship was such an important bonding moment for all of us that
Absolutely.
you quit a job to play Smash Brothers for an afternoon.
I learned a lot from that day, too.
I,
I learned how to play Pikachu just that much better that
oh,
day.
that's right. Yeah, like certain timing on his when you're shuffling backwards off of Final Destination.
So I have a question for you. So
Ask.
since you have a totally different perspective and a totally different life, obviously,
Yeah.
how has your experience bred your desire for more? How do you measure your own success? You know,
So, yeah, I guess at this point, what I would be saying is that the amount of people that I impact positively would be correspondent with success as I feel it. I'm financially solvent enough to just exist comfortably. I don't make a ton of money, but I have a modest sized place. I get video games, from work, and that's really all I need. I don't have a fancy car. I don't have, like a lot of like fancy stuff, but I have the video games that I want to play and a community with which to share them. So my big thing now is I play video games now less than ever. I'm surrounded by them more than I've ever been in my life, but I don't play them nearly as often because I'm busy helping run the community with New Game Plus, with Gamers Anonymous, with trying to like talk with people in our community page, get events going and ready. And at this point, I'm to the point where I want to just be behind the scenes, pulling the curtain and the strings, and letting people experience stuff, and me sort of living out my enjoyment of video games through other people enjoying them. And the more I can do and present that, the more success I feel that I have, is sharing what I love so much with other people. And so that's my success.
I love that. That's a much better thing to put on a resume than
I got 20 people to play Fusion Frenzy on the Xbox. Hire me. Yeah.
yes. I
And
like that a lot.
you've seen me do this my whole life because as long as you've known
Yeah.
me, I've either worked at Replay Games, I worked at Blizzard for like a year over at Cytel, I worked at GameStop, I worked at EB, I've worked like you've seen me through all of it, the entirety of like my video game retail career. You've been present for.
Yeah.
Used to come with me to work and just hang out in the back room and play games, and we would just chill and talk, and I'd sell games to people and we'd play video games when nothing was going on. And maybe that's terrible and irresponsible now, but also again at this point in my life I look at it as important and formative.
Absolutely. I I think it's impressive how you took something that generates happiness for you and you were able to carve a career out of it.
Hmm.
You know, not only in video games, but literally providing joy and happiness for other people. Like you're involved with a lot of communities, and so therefore a lot of people in those communities are smiling. So you've professionalized your life. In high school, people came to your house, right, to experience video games and have community.
Yep.
And so you're like you're living the life that most people. What is that saying where I never worked a day in my life? 'Cause
Right.
I love what I do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I always think of like Hispanic dads walking in my store and going, "Hey, bro, working hard or hardly working?" And they would just, they didn't require an answer. They just wanted to say the phrase that they had been taught. And so, I've heard that from a lot of men, and like statistically, most of them are just like Hispanic 45-year-old guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my
Because
best,
like when
like the height of what I want to be.
Right, that's what you're going for.
Yeah.
You're shooting for that. Well, see, and like if you're a white guy, you're gonna come in and you're gonna have sunglasses on, and you're gonna, "Hey boss, how much can you do this game for?" And like you're gonna call me, like that's the code name, boss. And like I don't know, it's a lot of good patterns there, but
my brother. I used to make fun of my brother Basil. He was a car salesman for a lot of years. And I once went to his job and I witnessed him speaking to different people. And the funniest to me was when he addressed white people, he immediately took on a totally different persona and started calling the gentleman or whatever that he was talking to Bud. Right?
Bud.
So he's like, "Oh, hey, Bud," and like total personality shift.
So it's like a more interpersonal thing. Like we're friends now, like.
Yeah, Bud.
Yeah, Bud. Okay.
He would make those sales. So I mean, what can you do?
Oh, it works. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, as soon as you buddy up to somebody, is he the one that does the Donald Duck impression?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry.
That's about like mine. Yeah, mine's no better. Yeah.
But he would leave messages on my phone saying, "I'm so sorry." With Donald Duck.
That's accurate.
What's funny about that is because he's like a man's man,
Yeah.
Basil. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
He's got huge muscles, like total dude, and just. I want to show you what it sounds like. But I can't.
Well, the fact that I can see you on camera here sort of gesticulating and trying makes it 1,000 times better. I've noticed that hearing an impression is one thing, but watching somebody like prime themselves for it makes it a whole lot better because like your whole body goes into making sure it sucks or it doesn't. I don't know. Mine always suck except for like 2 of them. But do you do any impressions? I can't remember if this is something that we had.
Oh man. I used to specialize in mimicking female singers.
Oh, like J-Lo?
So
or
no, who was it?
Selena?
Jewel?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Actually, fuck you, by the way, because I was in the shop like a week ago, and this is 100% your fault because I never think of the song unless I think of you singing it. And we were watching like, I don't know, a stream of something at the shop, and suddenly I just hear "Passionate Kisses." And you used to fucking sing that all the time for no good reason back in 99 or something dumb. And so
that's because I had the ADHD.
I think
undiagnosed at that time.
Oh, absolutely,
so
my friend.
It was cool.
Absolutely. But yeah, Passionate Kisses. God damn it.
Passionate Kisses.
Yes.
I did a lot of Jewel's.
I can think of Jewel too.
You know that crap?
Yes, I do.
My voice has changed. I finally went to puberty recently, but I used to do that a lot. And yeah, just that's what I would do. I would hear a female vocalist, and I would just immediately just line up all of the atoms in my body to just shoot out their voice. And in my head, I was like, "Oh, that's spot on." I don't know what you guys heard.
Oh, it was great. No, the same thing. But yeah, I think I uploaded onto my YouTube a video of us in. God, it must have been like junior year playing video games, StarCraft and Marvel vs. Capcom, and I was recording with the old big, huge video camera. And yeah, your voice was definitely significantly higher. My hair was long,
Crazy.
some of those days I look back at and I'm kind of embarrassed by it. I'll be totally honest. There's a couple.
Really?
So there's a couple clips, and it's maybe not so much embarrassment as like, oh, I hope nobody sees this, but almost like a shame and kind of like, I don't necessarily know if I liked certain things that I did at that time. Like at this stage in the game, if I saw like some kid doing that or heard him like doing that, I'd probably want to call it out. Could be like, hey, don't do that to people. Don't treat people like that. Don't. And in my mind, 23 years ago, it was kind of like, oh, just some stupid kid. Maybe that's true. But also, so it was kind of like, man, you gotta sort of loosen your asshole a little bit, like there's
a little bit more aware of the read the room, bro.
You're right, yeah. And I still see Pat all the time. Actually, Pat comes over to the shop and he hangs out with me in the mornings, and we talk often about how like even 10 years ago, the mid 2000s, 15 years ago, Jesus. The mid 2000s, the kind of people that we were at the time, because we were all still, developing. You stopped developing around 25 or 26, so I'm told. And so there was still a lot of like energy and, some angst with a lot of us. I can really only speak for myself because I look back at it now and go, John, you were kind of a turd, And maybe at times I was still fun and had a good time, and we did the laughing game, we played Smash Brothers. But also thinking about how opinionated I was or how I expressed those things to people. And I look back at it and go, oh man, that's the kind of person I wouldn't want in my store, is I've moved on from that. And I hope that if I saw that, I could be like, hey, cool your jets. This is, nobody's interested in how much you hate this thing,
Yeah.
So
in hearing that, it almost immediately, it resonates true with me. So I wonder if that's just kind of the common thing of most people. Most people will probably look back and be like, what was I thinking when I said or did that?
Sure.
Because now when I watch the videos that you show of me, I'm like, oh, that kid is so hyper and he doesn't give a shit about those around him. He doesn't listen to the people around him. He's just too busy thinking of ways to make those other people laugh, even if they don't want him to.
Yeah.
If you guys ask me a normal question, I'll be like, yeah, but what about my balls? Look at my balls. Like, it's just something, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's so inconsiderate.
Right.
But
I guess in the company that you were with, which is primarily Danny and myself, I'd say we probably hung out the most at the time. It was just sort of something that we did, and I never minded it. In fact, I think the only time when I was younger and I got like genuinely upset, because we had times where we'd be playing Smash Brothers and you would beat me and I'd get mad and I'd reach over and I'd punch your leg, or we'd have arguments in the kitchen about how like, well, you just stand in the corner all day until somebody comes to you, and stupid arguments about our play styles. But the only time I remember being actually genuinely upset with you, because this is actually after I had been in a car wreck with my mom in 1987. This is before I had met any of you guys. You called me up at one point at my mom's house, and you were like, John, dude, you got to come get we got in this really bad car wreck. Please come on down to the corner of whatever. And I was like, oh my God, we got to go. And then I ran to the front door and opened it, and it was like you and JR standing outside just laughing. And that was, I think, the only time when I was just like, man, that's not how this works.
No,
and I was genuinely upset at that one.
And I again, my defense mechanism, I must have been like, ooh, that was a low for me. Snip it out.
Right, yeah, completely cut it out.
That's too painful. That is hitting a trauma with a baseball bat. It's just like, oh, this is a sensitive area for somebody. It just, in the name of comedy, thinking it would be funny.
Sure.
It wasn't funny at all.
Yeah, a prank is a great theoretical comedy device, but I think in most cases, pranks still need to sort of like be prefaced with something, because pranking is actually just kind of a terrible way to treat people. And we used to do it all the time too. We used to do pranks. But I was thinking about that.
It's really uncomfortable now that you opened that floodgate. I remember calling your store and pranking you. Why did I prank?
I don't know.
Now, like when I see pranking, like crank yankers or whatever,
yeah.
I can't handle it emotionally. I'm like, why do they do this? They're just taking advantage of people and like.
Yeah, like even if
God.
they're totally harmless, I think sometimes it's kind of like, interrupting somebody's day can be kind of tricky, because like I'll usually take it in stride. but some people don't. Some people have a really hard time dealing with it, and
Yeah.
I'm not out to squash people's fun. I just think it's always good to like look back at that and say, what is truly okay to do to people? Like, there's like a time and a place, because I think it's fun to fuck with your friends. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but also like you can't just willy-nilly do something to them and then when they get upset just be like, oh, lighten up, because you have no idea what kind of effect that could have.
Yeah.
And but really, I think anytime we've ever done anything outside of that, it's always been hilarious, because I can't think of a lot of times when you actually actively just did pranks. You just did stuff as a human being that and
No, it's all
corn
everything
in the bathroom.
yes.
I'm gonna bring this one up. Is one day, so you were hiding in the house, I believe, and my mom. I don't even know if she was there at the time. I don't think she was, but you were at the house and you heard
Yeah.
her coming home, and you were eating
Yeah.
a can of corn.
Yes.
and
Hold
you-
on. Let me build some. Let me give you some backstory.
Okay. I want to know the
Okay.
origins. Yeah.
I had a very long and proud and illustrious career at eating at the expense of my friends and their families and their hard-earned dollars.
Yeah.
Because I was poor, and I mean, going home was the worst option to me. So in
Sure.
my head, I was like, it's probably better if you just eat something. Because first of all, I was super fat. Like, I'm fat now, but in high school, it was like this kid invented the thyroid problem fat. You know what I mean? Like I was the trailblazer in in eating disorders in high school. But I was so hungry, and I didn't want to eat your good food, like because in the past you and I had confrontations where like I ate your chicken.
Oh.
Your mom made you a dish, and I ate some of it or maybe all of it, and you confronted me, and I was like, oh yeah, you're right. So I didn't want to do that, but I was really hungry, so I was like, what could I eat that maybe they won't notice?
Just no one will have any idea that this has gone missing.
Yeah, so I opened up a can of corn. I didn't heat it up. I didn't put it in a bowl. I literally opened up a can of corn and was just eating room temperature corn. But then I heard the garage door open, ran to the bathroom, panicked because I'm trapped and I have nothing to do. So yeah, now you can finish the story. 'Cause
And so this is going to be good to sort of piece this together, because I remember it must have been the same afternoon or same day or evening or whatever it might have been, coming home and going into the bathroom and taking a poop or pee or whatever it was, and looking at it was normally one of like those square tissue boxes, but it had like the little like yarn guard around it,
Yeah.
whatever that was called, like little the cover. And I remember looking over to like grab some tissue out of it and seeing that like the bottom was like soaking, like from the tissue going up was soaking, and I was like, what is happening? And so I pulled the cover off, and the whole tissue box was gone, but somehow you had left a tissue in this thing, and it was in the corn, the can of corn. So like the soppiness from the corn, the wet had like
Yeah,
seeped
it went
up
up.
into this Kleenex, and I immediately knew it had to have been you, because there's no other
Yeah.
explanation. And maybe
it's shameful. John, it was out of the goodness of my heart that I hid that can of corn. It wasn't because
you did that for me.
for you, man.
Thank
It was
you.
for you and Mana.
I appreciate that.
I put the thing. There was okay. First of all, your mom was super good at cleaning, so she would, like,
She's gonna
daily-
find you out, yeah.
Yeah, she was gonna discover the corn in the trash. So I
Any
couldn't put the corn in the
discrepancy,
trash.
she'd cite you and call the cops. Yeah.
Well, exactly, because the gig's up. Everybody knows who put the corn in the bathroom, right?
Right. Yeah. There's no other option.
So, I put it in the only place that I could hide it, where I told myself I was going to go back and take care of the evidence later on.
Probably
but
an
I forgot
hour,
about it.
what hours later,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah. It might not even been the same day. Truth be
No,
told.
no, I think it was.
Do you think it was the
days.
same day?
It was like very long. I think I would say it was days later or maybe a week later.
Oh wow.
Because I remember you being like, "What the heck?" And then I was like, "Oh no!" But I put the tissue in there so that nobody would suspect.
Yeah.
Because because your mom's good at cleaning. If she saw an empty napkin tissue container, then she'd be like, I'm just gonna put this, a new tissue thing in there.
Sure.
So
In my
the
mind,
gig would be up.
that's true. And in my mind, I kept thinking, why didn't you put it like in the bathroom cabinet behind in the very back behind some towels or something? But
Because that's devious.
that's true. That's where you become dishonest.
Those are the actions of a man who's trying to hide something.
Oh, I see. So you wanted to
I
be
was
caught,
just temporarily trying to cover something up real quick.
but then a week later it goes on, and we're ADHD compliant. We forget. Yep.
Bad stuff.
Yeah.
Bad stuff.
Good. A lot of good memories. In that house.
I thought you were going to tell me that the one time you were truly upset with me is you and I had a confrontation where I dropped your Dreamcast. The Dreamcast was across the room, and we would pull the controllers to the couch.
Uh-huh.
And me and Danny were playing a game or something, and I don't remember what I did, but obviously I pulled the controller, and it pulled the Dreamcast forward and dropped it. And you were on your computer behind me.
In the living room, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember the computer was in front of the window there by the...
Yep.
Yeah. So, I potentially broke your Dreamcast. So 100% I understood your fury. And so I was over there, like, lifting it, and I remember being so ashamed. Oh, my God, I just broke this dude's Dreamcast. I feel so bad. I'm sorry. And you came up behind me and kneed me right in the butthole.
Really? I don't remember this at all.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry.
Your response was true fury.
Oh my God.
And here's what I feel even more bad. Obviously, I felt bad that I potentially broke the Dreamcast. That's not cool of me, right? But I was so mean to you because my testosterone spiked, and I immediately turned around and got in your face, and I was like, "Nobody hits me!"
Oh my God. I don't remember.
And it shocked everybody in the room. I remember Danny being kind of disappearing and being like, "Oh,
He just sort
what am I watching?"
of descends into the shadows.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, because you and I never really fought a lot, so I don't even remember that, to be honest. I remember you and Danny fighting all the time.
Yeah, me and Danny, we had some battles for sure.
Yeah, well, there's a night we were playing Mario Tennis on the 64, and at first, I think you guys were on a team, and it was like me and Andrew versus you and Danny, and it started off with you'd miss a ball or whatever, and Danny would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm Jason, I eat my own pee or whatever," and then Danny would miss a ball, and you'd be like, "I'm Danny, my dad beats me," or whatever. You'd say something, and then eventually it devolved into really personal attacks, and it was just my uncle hates me because he thinks I smell like shit and my mom sucks or whatever. And it would be really and it finally started getting actually personal and turning into two monsters. So I saw you guys fight all the time.
Me and Danny definitely we had the curse of the testosterone spikes.
Sure.
In fact, I don't know if you knew about this, but there was a time where I was basically living at Danny's house. His parents had gone away. So this story might be new to you.
Okay.
His parents had gone away traveling in their RV, and it's funny because they explicitly said, "Danny, you're not allowed to have your friends over." So immediately when we heard about this, we uninvited came over to his house
Of course.
and lived there the entire summer.
Yep.
John, we ruined that house in ways you can't even imagine. For whatever reason, we were generally very respectful of your house. We didn't horse around, but for some reason at his house we lost control, dude. And we were older at this time too than
Sure.
we were when we were hanging out at your house.
Was
But
this
anyway,
college era or what time period do you think this was in?
yeah, college time for you guys for
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
Me just eating other people's food time, which is 10 years
Sure.
after high school.
Sure.
But we were at his house, and in this particular story where we fought, we were playing a game called the Pain Game, and this is where
I don't know if I know about this.
We were motivated by that movie Jackass, or that
Sure.
show Jackass.
Sure.
They hurt each other, and it's really funny. And we were just playing the Pain Game, and it was escalating. So I can't remember the exact situation that triggered it. Oh! I hit Danny with an oar. He had an oar that I think it's called an oar. The thing that you
In a kayak or whatever?
People, yeah.
White
Kayaking.
people, yeah, exactly. For rich white kids when they go on vacation in the summer, yeah, you're not wrong.
I have an oar in my house. But anyway, I hit him with that, and I think I hit him in the elbow, which pissed him off because that hurt. That's a funny bone, and
Sure.
literally, I struck him hard. He lost his mind, went out the back yard, pulled a PVC pipe, but he didn't know it at the time. But that PVC pipe was broken already, so the end had a big spike.
Oh fuck.
And he shoved me in the torso and literally, like a knife, went into me. And I pulled it out, and I was so pissed at him, I slapped him, open hand slapped. You know what I mean? Dude, we have never, we got into it. Like,
Oh, I bet.
it was a bad time.
Did you guys like stop talking at all?
We stopped talking because when I slapped him, John, it was like I overstepped a boundary, and it was weird because when I slapped him, we both knew that a line had been crossed.
Oh,
and that,
sure.
like, it's potentially damaging to our friendship. So like he went into his room, and I didn't have a car or a way to get out of his house. And so I uncomfortably was just apologizing at his door, knocking, and just feeling so bad that in his house, I did
The unthinkable.
I did the unthinkable, man. You never open hand slap your friend. A punch would have been better. A punch would have been like,
Sure.
oh, okay, yeah, well, I understand how to navigate the next step. But a slap is like, I don't know. There's just something about it that's like, it's a final statement. Like, I believe that you are beneath me type of, I don't know. It's just, it's
Yeah,
like
there's a much more aggressive
powerful
pull to
moment.
it. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like
So
an
that's-
old Victorian, like, like statement kind of thing. You were really like, you peasant, get away from me.
Luckily, though, that was the last time that Danny and I fought because, I think we saw what the extreme end of that would be, and therefore we never went there again. So
Sure.
that's good.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad. I remember a time when actually I was out of town, and Lucas was house sitting for me, and I was like, "Hey, man, just make sure I don't want anybody over at the house, just you." And Lucas is like, "Yeah, that's fine." And then he videotaped all of you guys coming over and like eating food and hanging out and playing games, and your butt crack around the spine of my little like chair with, I believe,
The little metal, the little
fleck-
metal bar.
there's a fleck of poop.
The evidence! The evidence!
It was there. It was
I
there.
hate that you found it.
I
I mean, it's there.
but especially the fact that like Lucas recorded the whole thing.
yeah.
It was like, and this is what 2000. No, this is 99. This is I was out and you were playing StarCraft, and I was out in Korea visiting my brother, and it wasn't like a closed circuit camera inside the house that happened to pick up like spirits and spooks and things like that. It was like you
Yeah.
guys pulled out like the VHS and were like, oh, let's document this whole thing.
Yeah. Looking back on it now, though, I see his innocence in that.
I
move.
do too.
We
I do too.
100% tricked him into that.
Oh, did you guys?
He was
duped
not
him?
like, hey guys, cats away, let's play.
Oh yeah, you just sort of
We were like
manipulated
we called-
Lucas.
Exactly. We
Okay.
called. We found out that you were out of town, and
Whose idea was it to record? I don't remember who was holding.
I
Jesse,
I couldn't tell
Danny.
you. It was
I don't know.
Yeah, one of our stupid ideas.
I don't
but
know. It
I
doesn't
can
matter
tell
at this
you with
point,
100%
but
honesty, it was not Lucas's fault. He was the victim, and like I said, his recording of it is proof that he wasn't in a state of mind where he was like, "F John, I'm going to show it."
oh, of course, yeah. That's. I didn't think anything about it was sinister. I just thought it was a really interesting sort of like, because it wasn't even at
It was
my
so
request.
rude.
It was like my parents were like, "Hey, have Lucas do this whole thing." So it was like, "Hey guys, just follow the rules." And then for it to be immediately documented and then shown to me, it wasn't like a secret tape that got buried in the backyard. It was.
Oh goodness, I don't know why I was such a piece of shit. For lack of a better
we were kids. We were kids. I don't
Because
even.
we were all kind of pushing the limits of what
Yeah.
we could get away with, type of thing. Growing pains.
Yeah, discovering who we were and how we communicate and how we seek out boundaries in others. Because how do you know boundaries, especially at that point, unless somebody communicates it to you? And most people don't, especially as friends. We didn't have those kinds of skills. So I again still think
Yeah.
of it as, kind of quintessential to becoming who we are at this point by being able to go back and look at it and recognize the what it was. But I
Speaking of boundaries, though, I wanted to get your perspective on that. Since you were the core of like the community hanging out at your house all the time,
mhm.
like it's hard for me to imagine what that was like for you and Mana to
It,
have no privacy ever and to have your stuff constantly stolen or
I
disrespected. And
sure. You know,
clearly, I apologize a million
no,
times
you're
for
good.
that
You're good.
person. But
And again, to me, that's all I wanted. I had no problem living the life of, hey, I just want to hang out with my friends all day. When I think of high school, I remember like a class or two, and it's not even that I remember, oh, this guy's history class or this guy's economics class. I remember, 2 sessions of this guy's economic class over the whole semester. But what I remember is hanging out with my friends in between those classes and hanging out with my friends after school. So for me, school was simply a time to socialize with classes sort of being in the way because all I wanted to do was hang out with my friends and talk and play games and have fun. So,
yeah,
I was very much at the bottom of the class for the year 2000 and I didn't care because it wasn't my priority to learn things
really,
that might have come in useful. Yeah. Um,
I didn't know that. I thought that
no.
you were. I thought you were a student just like everybody
Mm,
else that I knew.
not at all. Not at all. I
Wow,
was
no
yeah,
way.
I
You're
was
lying to me.
far from it. No, I did well when I went to college because I decided that like this is something that was more applicable to immediate interest. But in high school, I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
care. In high school,
Okay.
I did what it took to pass, and maybe I liked English because I was good at it. I liked art because I was good at it, but I didn't care about history. I didn't care about math. I didn't care about, science. So I just did what it took to get by, and barely sometimes because I wasn't putting in the effort or work to be a good student. Because it was like, could I dick around in class instead? Cool, let's do that.
Yeah.
And so meeting you in the hallway and hearing you laugh coming down the hallway of like C Hall or whatever, like all the stupid crap we did.
It's fun, dude.
That was my driving force. Yeah, you showing up. You didn't even go to school, but you'd show up for lunch so you could hang out with us, and then you'd leave.
Yeah. Gosh. If only I could go back and tell that kid, hey, this is going to have consequence, like there's ramifications for this.
Do you think it
But
really would? Do you think at its core that it would have changed who you are? Like, do you think you would have cultivated a specific interest, career-wise, or put you in a different direction if you had actually done that, though?
no, I wouldn't say that it would put me on a course. What it would have done is it would have set up a foundation to build on.
Hmm.
Because I have no concept or had no concept of the future,
Hmm.
it wasn't important to me to build something. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like I was just I was just happy to go along other people's rides because it was fun.
Mm.
It was everything that I wanted or needed out of life. Think about it from my perspective. Like I grew up in poverty, and yet I was never hungry because I had friends to fill in the gaps,
Hmm.
right? So if ever there was a need, something filled in that gap for me. So I immediately, I always had what I needed. So I never, it was never important to me to think of the future. And looking back now, I wish I would have learned how to set a goal, set a foundation to build on. Because even those skills are still lacking to this very day. Like, like making a bed, for instance.
Hmm.
To a lot of people, including myself, that seems like a stupid thing to do, and it just wastes literal moments of your day because you're going to get in that same bed and you're going to make it messy
Hmm.
and whatever. But now that I'm older, I see that there are actually benefits to making your bed every day because it teaches you discipline. It teaches you to just to work out muscles of organization or task building
Hmm.
or whatever it is.
Sure.
There are things to be learned from something as stupid to me as making your bed every day.
Right.
So, and because I lived a life with completely devoid of any of those basic skills, it's really hard for me to function. Um, like like working out, I think comes naturally to a lot of people, Like they'll just be like, all right, I'm gonna work out 3 times a week. This is my schedule. I'm gonna do it. Me, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna work out once, and then I'm like, oh, I'm sore. I'll work out in 3 more months. It's fine. And I
Yeah.
just, you know what I'm saying? I just can't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very lacking in those beginning basic skills at the bottom.
That was hard for me as well too, because I didn't have a lot of routine or discipline for certain things. I had personal routines when it came to game playing habits or eating or things like that, but not really interpersonal sort of organizational stuff. And that definitely has caught up with me because I have an idea of how I like to be organized, and once I start getting in the zone of doing it, it's great. But I have to like be there to be organized. I don't just default into organizing things. I will oftentimes set something somewhere to think, oh, I'll know where this is so I can put it back in the right spot later, only to, that never happens ever for the next 2.5 years. And so it builds up so badly. Like I've been in this apartment for about a month and a half, and I still have stuff that I've been meaning to put away that I've separated into a pile that I can go through and haven't touched it since the middle of April. So there are times that I wish I had also gotten those skills sort of more developed as well. But my parents were busy and they were working. They weren't around a lot during those times, so I didn't really have an influence to teach me. My brother and sister had gone off to college, and so it was, it just wasn't something that was sort of taught to me directly as a priority. But that's a good point, though. Yeah. And it wasn't until I got older that I started focusing on that, and I still struggle with it on a lot of levels, but I've gotten better about establishing the routine of, make your bed, put the laundry away, vacuum the floor a couple times a week, or, like really having more of an actual pattern that has, honestly, it's made me feel like, waking up, there's an immediate sense of purpose for the next 30 minutes, including, eating breakfast and what that's going to look like or be. And, that's been kind of nice, really establishing a routine, taking some medication in the morning, my vitamins and, my allergy medicine and stuff like that, and being in that habit. But I know what you mean. And even starting with making the bed has proven to be like, it's a great first step because you're literally right there the moment you wake up.
Yeah.
It sort of kickstarts that. But that's a good point too, I didn't really think about that, but that makes sense.
I'm telling you, man.
It makes sense.
There are pros and cons to the way we grew up.
Yep.
Pros, I feel like because we were in such a joy-driven environment that we really pushed the envelope naturally of what brings joy. So, like, and I in my mind have evidence for this. For instance, we would meet other groups of friends, and they would gravitate towards our group of friends just based off of whatever it was. And it's not like we were cool kids in high school.
Right, yeah. We were just sort of nerds doing our thing, whatever it was.
Exactly. And yet there was something about us that would draw people in, and they would get something out of it because they would come back. So, like, remember when we met people in Texas that thought that we were fun and creative and all that? So
absolutely.
I think we were able to push the boundaries of of how much fun a person can have and what's funny and stuff like that. So definitely I wouldn't trade anything for it. But yeah, there's definitely some lessons that I could have learned from other people. Like Adam Searle, there's a running joke. There's a running joke that I have with Danny where he is the ultimate man to me. And it's so like I'll message Danny like randomly. I'll be like, hey, like out of college, Adam made 6 figures. You know what I mean? And I don't know how to present it to you the way that I present it to him because he knows how I would sound typing that into him. I'd be like, Adam wouldn't have done that, or it's just like whatever it is. But he's like a yoga master and very successful.
Yeah, very smart scientist. You could ask him literally any science question, he would just know. One of my memories of his like expertise was in the kitchen, and I would approach him with a hand cupped to like, touch his balls or whatever, and without thinking, he just swept his hand.
yeah.
You know, he would just second nature. He was blocking while talking with me, and it
Yeah,
was just
yeah.
instinctively keeping my hand at bay without breaking a sweat in conversation.
Not even a moment's pause. Like he'll be like explaining like raiding in World of Warcraft. Like, yeah, so basically the idea is that you want to get the priests, they want to heal the tanks, and you are constantly trying to bug him.
Yeah, and he just stimulus response. It was completely yeah. He just knew. He just like his body reacted. Yeah. Well, his brain and body were separate entities.
Correct.
Yep.
All-knowing Cyril.
Yeah, great guy. I've known him even longer. I've known him since probably kindergarten, as long as I've known Lucas. So those are the two people I've probably known the longest in my life. I met you the day I remember meeting you anyway. I might have met you once before this, just sort of in passing, but the day I remember meeting you was I was driving to Sears because they had an N64 kiosk with a demo of Turok 2. And I picked you and Danny up, maybe from Danny's house, maybe from your house. I don't remember offhand. And we drove to Sears, and you were sitting in the back seat, and I remember you blowing your nose all over your face and just staring at me. And I was in the driver's seat, like looking in my mirror, just with you
mirror.
With boogers all over your face.
A person you had just
literally just met.
Your car.
Yeah.
I was just and yeah, not with my hands. Just
nope.
Looking at you in the eyes and just blowing snot all over my mouth and chest.
Yeah, shooting air out your nose as hard as you could till it just blew all over your face. Yeah. And that was my first time meeting you, and from that point on, though, I think we always still got along pretty well, but it was a good impression, because also it didn't deter me. I thought it was funny. But, and you know, maybe this is something that people liked about us, is, say we had certain friends, you know, our friends from Texas, or people who were sort of on the outside, sort of even looking in, that liked being around it, is that they also didn't have to commit to it to the degree that we did. They could hang out with us, see that you could just let loose, but then they could step back into like responsibility, and they were fine with it.
Yeah,
you know,
true.
Daniel Prentice was a great academic, very smart, well-disciplined, you know, guy. And he hung out with us pretty frequently, but I think it was also probably easier for him to sort of be around to like just, you know, shake it all out and then go home and then study and get A's, which, you know, we didn't care about. So
we provided that variety, like that wacky meal you would eat on Wednesday. Crazy pizza Wednesday. That's what we were to him.
Yeah, completely. I mean, senior year was, we would stay up till 4 a.m. playing Mario Golf on the 64 or Worms. And then we'd drive to Dunkin' Donuts, get some donuts, and then come back, go to sleep, and then, you know, go to school the next day or whatever it was. Like, it was all spent just getting by, but enjoying ourselves and all of that other downtime.
Can I present an idea?
I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
To close this conversation out. I mean, we can keep talking or whatever.
Sure.
I want to plant this seed in your mind.
Okay.
I want you to imagine what it was like for your mom to come into the living room on probably even weekdays. Yeah, I think I did sleep at your house during weekdays.
Assuredly. Yeah, it wasn't just weekends. We were hanging out almost every day.
Yeah. So she, you know, is a upper middle class woman, owns her own home.
Mm-hmm.
Her son is kind of wild and into music and has some wacky friends.
Yes.
But I want you to imagine for a moment getting out of your bed, starting your day, going into your own kitchen. But on your way to your kitchen, to the left of the kitchen is the living room, where you see your beloved son's fat, stinking friend with an erection on the couch. Because, and I say this because I remember in high school, I woke up every time with an erection. It worked.
The erection worked, or
the thing.
Like your body's mechanisms.
The pee-pee.
Oh, okay, good. It was functional.
The pee-pee worked back then.
Okay, pee-pee was productive.
And I can't imagine what it was like to just, in your own home, have to see something so horrible. And also, she was exposed to the worst level of gases that would flow out of our high school bodies. And there was a lot of us in the room, John.
Yeah, that's like true.
Me and you. It was like 8 of us.
Yeah.
Farting. And I remember the look on her face sometimes when she would open the door and just be confronted with this this chemistry that is shooting into her nose. I feel so bad.
No, yeah, when you asked that question earlier, about how it affected me, like I loved every minute of it. But I'm really impressed at the amount of patience that my mother had for all of it,
Yeah.
all of us through all that time. And maybe it's because I was her last kid and she just wanted to continue nurturing and helping because my mom is such a giving person.
Oh, totally.
And I can only think of maybe like once or twice when the noise might have been too much, but she usually sat in her room and just watched Walker Texas Ranger and, went to bed with the cat, and that was usually fine. I remember though when she had her friend in from out of town, Stephanie, and she got upset with us because she
Yeah.
came to me in my own house and was like, "You're making so much noise," and it was just like, "Oh, listen, lady, you know." And
I'm not in
she,
control of them. They're out of control. You should have
right.
blamed.
Yeah, maybe I did. I don't know, to be totally honest. I think at the time I was a lot more likely to sort of like pass the buck because I didn't want to get in trouble. So during
Yeah,
that era,
good, good.
especially, it could have been it. Um, but the nerve. You're a guest in our house, and I'll make as much noise. I wasn't very considerate of that, but I don't think we were trying to be loud. We were doing what we normally do, and she came out and
Yeah,
yelled at us, and it was like, oh well. Of course, I feel
yeah.
bad about it. I'm not out to ruin people's lives, but she just she didn't get the
And
dynamic. She had not been around us long enough to know that we play Mario Kart all night long.
she's amazing, dude. If there's ever a shoe in, I believe is the term for going to heaven.
Yeah,
She's already there. Like that's
sainthood guaranteed,
guaranteed.
without
She is
question.
literally guaranteed going to heaven.
Yeah, absolutely. My mom was
Yeah,
one of the most patient, wonderful, giving people I've ever met, and I'm surprised at the amount of nonsense she put up with all of us.
dude.
Yeah,
Off the, if only the listeners knew. Like
yeah,
it's oh goodness gracious.
yeah. And so I think some people who are listening to this that know me probably know how much I respect, the giving nature of my parents. So hopefully, but if not, then
Absolutely.
I want to tell you that she has done more for us than I could ever thank her for.
Yes.
Buying us food and replacing broken things, and
Do
you
you
know,
remember how many 24 packs of Pepsi or whatever she had to buy to keep the supply going?
I remember it.
Because we would burn through your supply, John. And
I know.
like I'm seriously thinking about it. Like now that I'm in charge of grocery shopping for my own life or whatever,
Yeah.
I know how much shit
Oh
costs.
yeah, and the thing is now, if you're buying your own groceries and you drink a soda, you finish the soda. The
You
amount of
finish the damn
unfinished
soda.
cans that we left in her kitchen, and she would come in and she would pour the rest down the drain because she knew we weren't
Oh,
going to drink them because they were left out overnight. You know, poor woman. What a
speaking
wonderful
of shoe-ins, I'm definitely gonna burn for all eternity
for
for what
for
I put
hiding
you
the
guys through.
corn for. I never thought of you as a terrible person either.
Oh, John, you fucking like, dude. Ah, man, it's all right. Learning lessons.
Oh, good.
We'll call it that.
Oh,
Learning
good.
lessons.
Is that the name of the podcast? That's the catchy title, Learning Lessons.
Oh, we got to figure that out.
That's what I was thinking,
We
because
should
we
probably put
have
it out there.
we have a lot of stuff to draw from video games that we used to play or experiences we had. Here's one that I was thinking of. We were sort of at odds with each other at one point in the mid 2000s, and I remember we were having like this live journal fight because one of my favorite things that we still got to do as friends is we played a lot of video games, we hung out a lot, but we also still did a surprising amount of like outdoor activities. And I remember Sunday nights going to the park by my old apartment, and we'd play Ultimate Frisbee.
Oh yes, Razor Burn.
Razor Burn. And I remember we had some live journal fight, and you commented on how stupid Razor Burn was because you were trying to get
Oh,
under my
Razor
skin.
Burn.
And yeah, it was a stupid thing where I would take the frisbee and I would just throw it like a normal frisbee, but really hard, and I'd always yell "Razor Burn" like really loud in the middle of the park. And
Just think of that for a
I
moment.
know.
In a normal game, and
Yeah, just
you're
24-year-old man.
Razor Burn.
Every single time I threw it, just over and over. Yeah, we were stupid. But Razor
That's
Burn was
cool.
all for you. And I like that we actually did that kind of stuff a lot. We went to the park frequently and, just chilled out. And that was really nice. So I was in the car thinking about Razorburn, and I was like, is that a good name for the podcast? It's not indicative of what we're going to be doing. Because this one also is still very sort of introductory, and, I do want to talk about video games, because clearly I love them, and I've got a lot of experience with playing games with you growing up.
Yes.
I know playing games at this point in our lives has shifted significantly for both of us, but I believe that given our exposure to them together, we still have a lot of experiences and conversations to draw from about the whole of it, with games that were meant for fun, what got us into competitive gaming, what drew me away from competitive gaming, what pushed you more into it. There's a lot of conversations, I think, to come regarding this, regarding companies and corporate decisions and things that do and don't affect us, but that we invest our, interest in anyway. And maybe talking about movies or shows that we used to watch, or just stupid things that we went to go do. I also still like the idea of doing a segment where, for maybe the last minute or two, we try to make one another laugh doing something super stupid. I have no idea, sort of like we'll key in people to the laughing game. But when I listen to podcasts, a lot of them have a little structure with certain silly fun things. Another great one I'm listening to right now is called Threedom. And it's the main host of Comedy Bang Bang, Scott Aukerman, and a couple of the other regular guests on the show that are absolutely hilarious. And at the end of every episode, I believe, they do some sort of verbal game that somebody suggests to them. So somebody will, write in and say, play this game in, for a minute or 70 seconds or, a minute 20 or whatever it is. And they're different every week. And some are really interesting, but they're all very, strong improv comedians. And so listening to how quick-witted they are and how well they can do some of these things is terrific. And I like the idea of that. Of course, I don't want to just make it derivative of other things out there, but I think what the nature of this will be is falling into its own as we get comfortable, figuring out what the flow is going to be. And, we could have an episode where we talk about just Smash 64 and what that was like for you and I, or what StarCraft meant to both of us, or, I used to import so many games and systems and what it was like coming home and playing them and rainy nights and lots of microwave pizzas and there's a lot of
gosh, yes.
There's just a lot of great stuff associated with it, and we could but if there's anything you want to talk about. And so for anybody who's listening to this, the structure is going to be, who knows at this point. I still don't know. We'll just sort of, I think that's every podcast that I've listened to became its own over years and years of sort of fine-tuning what started to make sense.
Exactly.
But, I want to do a lot of laughing. I do like the idea of us talking about, serious life issues every now and then. But also, the main reason I wanted to do this was to laugh.
Absolutely.
That's sort of the key component is, and I don't want it to just be bringing up anecdotes. I think that's going to be great and definitely part of it. But also, just talking about stupid shit. That's my favorite. That's my favorite.
I look forward to it. I also look forward to figuring it out with you.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a good idea that we recorded this first thing because we don't have exactly a structure in mind. Maybe something that we did will pop out to us and be like, ooh, let's do some of that. So it's a good idea. I would love to incorporate trying to make each other laugh. Maybe at the end of each episode or something, we do one attempt to make the other person.
You get one shot?
Just something, you get one shot to make the other person laugh. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then there's always next week.
That's whatever. Right, yeah. And we both each get a turn kind of thing. Okay.
But yeah, I definitely love to talk about video games, obviously. In fact, I'm interested in the difference of our relationships with video games. So
sure.
That's going to be a good talk for sure.
I think so.
Yeah, man, I look forward to it. I had a blast.
I did too.
Can't wait to do more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you want to try?
It wasn't funnier, but
I don't think either of us were pushing for the full comedy effect. I think a lot of it comes down to we just used to ask each other stupid questions, and that's a lot of my conversations start with hey, what if they made a game about dog dicks for the PlayStation? What would you do in it? And then
and then I'll just we'll build it.
I'm asking right now.
Oh well, if they did that, first of all, I would promise you and all my friends that I would buy it.
Oh,
I wouldn't buy it.
you're pitching to me that you would buy it.
Yeah.
So
and then 4 years later, after everybody's done with it, I'll pick it up for some reason. And it'll be like, hey, have you guys heard of this Dog Dicks game?
so the content's irrelevant. You're just going to buy it, promised.
Yeah, I'll promise to buy it.
Okay.
I won't.
Yeah, I was leaning towards like, what would it be like? What would you do? Who's the main hero? What is the bad guy? But you don't even care. You're committed to the purchase of the game, also knowing full well that you will get rid of it and then purchase it again.
Exactly. See, you immediately identified the difference in relationships in games.
Right,
You
exactly.
actually play them and enjoy them. I just promise friends I will play them.
Exactly. You just
I don't.
commit against your will. Yeah.
The fun of gaming to me is telling people, "Oh, dude, World of Warcraft's coming out," and then and then never play it.
Hyping it up for everybody else and just ditching it altogether. Okay. All right.
That's it, man.
All right. So here's what we're gonna do, if you'd like to.
I'm ready. I'm so ready.
I'm gonna give you 1 minute. You gotta make me laugh. You gotta make me laugh.
All right.
Go.
All right. Okay. Close your eyes. All right. You're standing in the middle of downtown Albuquerque, and there's nothing but homeless people surrounding you, and they're all coughing until. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Scratch that. We're moving on to the next thing. I can't do this, John. Okay. All right. No, I can't stop thinking about the homeless people. I'll do better next week. Okay. All right. I give up. That was my one shot.
Jesus.
That was my one shot.
It was pretty good though.
It's funny to me in my
all of them coughing. That's the problem. If they're around, of course that's like tragic and terrible. But if they're all coughing, it suddenly elevates into a much worse situation.
That was funny to me.
That's way worse.
How uncomfortable.
Oh God, do I have to try doing it to you now too?
Dude, if you're ready, hold on. Let me get a timer.
Oh shoot.
Can't do anything for myself these days. I got the timer.
Okay, 1 minute.
Setting it to 1 minute.
All right.
Hold on.
Okay.
I was at 30, so I was literally the furthest away that you could get to 1 minute.
Wouldn't the furthest be? Well, I was going to say
No,
0
you
minute.
pull the counter down. On the little thingamajiggy, look, if you do down, it reverses the countdown, so you could be like, do you know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I don't know if I know what you're saying.
All right, hold on. Can you see this?
Okay, I see this. 56 seconds. All right, so where were you when you were pulling it down?
I was at 30. So you can pull it down.
Okay, so you were the most evenly away. Okay, from 1 minute. I thought you meant like you were
I
like.
had to scroll through the most amount of numbers to get to 1.
I see. Yeah.
Either way I went.
The maximum possibility of getting. I see. Okay, that makes sense. For some reason in my mind, it was like a full-on like you had to do 1 minute scrolling like every second at a time, so you could have been like 200,000 seconds away, and that would be much further than 30.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
All right.
All right.
I'm ready whenever you are. You tell me when you're ready.
Oh God. All right. Well, you tell me when to go.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay. So imagine you're crawling through a supermarket, and there's just this really thick Australian baby at the end, and it's covered underneath a bunch of radishes, and it like looks up at you and just starts, "All right, look, I can see that." And you're trying to find out like what the accent is, like where it's from, and every now and then it says, "I'm from Brisbane," but you don't think that's the truth. "I'm from Perth." And you're trying to identify where this baby's from, and but every time you move a radish, its eyes like rotate all the way around in its head, and so you have to try to move the baby without touching a radish, otherwise you're gonna mess up its eyeballs. And it's every time it speaks, like a whole bunch of like just chips come out, and they're starting to spill all over the floor, and the baby's eyes get wider and wider.
I hate you so much. I hate you so much for saying an Australian baby. There's no reason why the nationality or whatever of the baby matters.
It matters to me. I don't even think that was very good. I appreciate you pity laughing me into that.
No,
Yes.
the Australian baby is what got me.
That's not very
I hate
good.
it.
I'll keep thinking of things. I'll try to like figure this out. This is the problem is as much as I love the comedy podcast, this is a hard thing to do, but I also want to like develop this with you as well too. And even guests, you know, I think somebody like the problem is if somebody like Danny shows up on here, and Danny's one of our longtime friends. Again, all these listening, also one of the funniest people I've ever met. He'll just have no problem making either of us laugh.
Yeah.
So that's an issue. But also,
it's a big issue.
Or Michelle showing up. I don't know if she ever wants to be on this for any reason, but of course she's.
Nobody alive has seen her for the past 2 years.
Oh,
there are people that I know that I'm very close with are not convinced that I actually am in a relationship or that I actually know somebody called Michelle.
Called Michelle, just sort of it's one of the spots on your wall that you identify with every evening. Just walk in and bring it.
Yeah.
Just some flour and just place it in front of it. Perfect. That feels good. Perfect. Well, this was a good attempt at a first episode. I think, again, as we sort of go forward, we'll figure out what an appropriate name will be. Who knows?
I do like Razorburn, though.
Razorburn.
Immediately, I thought of just something so silly and stupid, like 1980s color.
Oh, yeah, like neon commercial, Nerf kind of like,
Yes.
Razorburn. Yeah.
I hated you for thinking of Razorburn so much.
On the drive home, it popped into my mind, and I was like, "This is, it's a good story for me anyway. I don't think anybody else cares but you, but that's all right." No. I'm sure Michelle remembers Razorburn.
Anybody who's anybody will remember.
Anybody, that's true. Yeah, all the famous figureheads of the League of Nations.
Yes.
All right.
I love you.
Well, I love you too. Thank you, Jason, for doing this with me. I do need to tell you that my audio is great, but I forgot to record the first 10 minutes of video. So to whoever watches this on the video version that we figure out whenever, the first 10 minutes are missing because either I clicked the button twice or I forgot entirely.
What we could do is we could have people that we know that are artists just animate it.
That's a lot of 10 minutes of animation for this would be so bad.
Well, we know at least 10 different artists. One artist can do 1 minute segments, right?
That's so much work. I'd rather just get people to attempt to lip sync over it. But that would mean they'd have to listen to it and then have to memorize it to lip sync it. But that's still less work than animating it. So maybe. We'll see. Okay. But yes, thank you all for listening, whoever you might be, even if it's just one of you or literally nobody.
Yeah.
But
thank
hopefully,
you, Mom. I'm sure she'll listen.
Thanks, Mom. Yep, Mom will definitely listen. And we'll talk to you guys next time.
Catch you next time.
All right.
Razorburn.
On the Razorburn. Right. Good night.
Good night.